The truth about men going their own way. The MGTOW movement has gone viral worldwide, bringing together a network of men who have decided to abstain from all forms of male-female relationships. This is where an individual places a premium on his pride and ownership. The man is stubborn that he and he alone has the right to determine his own life's direction, and he has no intention of bending to the pressure of conventional gender roles or societal norms, since the people around him would always disappoint and betray him. Certain MGTOW out there take a service vow, cut off the supply of men, and bring attention to the millions of girls who mistreat men and disregard our traditional societal roles. Unfortunately, the media has made fun of MGTOW on numerous occasions. The public began to view MGTOW as a rising of cult male freedom fighters, and this perception stuck. Men going their way will never be popular with anyone other than the outcast of American society because it is based on a mindset that denies the fundamental essence of humans. Some people may label it as a cult without investigating it further. However, recent developments indicate a growing movement that cannot be written off as the product of a few lone trolls hiding out in their parents' basement and playing violent video games. To hear most meat tires describe it, ZFG, which stands for Zero F's Given, is more of a mentality than a social movement. MGTOW, unlike men's rights activists, most men want no part in the traditional roles of manhood, such as marriage, fatherhood, or cohabitation. Another MGTOW paints a somewhat more hostile picture, like a bunch of ostriches that couldn't care less. While we agree with several causes championed by men's rights activists, they despise us because we will never serve as their cannon fodder in the time of conflict. Since they can't make money off of us, pickup artists are disgusted by us. Both feminists and women dislike us because we won't fight for their rights or accommodate their demands of the male psyche. Those who strike out independently create new discussion topics and often find themselves without a job. The Trump phenomenon has many similarities to MGTOW. In both circumstances, men cry about their current societal position and hold others responsible for their perceived decline in power. In addition, both sorts of this site share a healthy skepticism of the media and take great pleasure in criticizing it. The scene opens with a lone man going away. We are making this declaration because we want an objective interview without bias. You'd have to talk to 16,000 people if you wanted an accurate sample size. One MGTOW might want to build a cabin in the woods and live off the grid, while another might pack up his 9 girlfriends, 20 kids, and no wife to move to Thailand. Someone else could opt to have a child via surrogacy but not get married. A third option is to conform to urban norms like everyone else and reject any marriage or cohabitation proposal. MGTOW is set up for rapid growth because of its policy of unorganized resistance. A situation in which unrelated groups of people come to the same conclusions and adopt the same actions against others or people for the same reasons. That's one of the main reasons MGTOWs are so tricky to spot. They're also rebelling against two separate things. For one, there are bad people like pickup artists and women who are more favored by society than men. For another, a society favors women over men in practically all institutions. Highly masculine men in the culture see themselves as unappreciated heroes, despite their intense dislike for users and manipulators. Many men have a problem with women and feminism because it gives them an excuse to ignore the many advantages of being a guy in the United States today. Most of MGTOW's concerns center on what they see as an underlying prejudice in favor of men within the guinea pig culture. In particular, they bring attention to the following double standards. In the case of harassment based on false accusations, the aggressor is usually gone within minutes, and the target suffers minimal consequences. At the same time, the repercussions of making a false accusation of romantic harassment can be devastating. Furthermore, raw data available everywhere demonstrates the geocentric bias of the family court system. Despite all the hoopla about equal rights for men and women, last but not least, he hopes to improve female driver safety despite the common belief that they are inherently riskier on the road. The assumption that males are being mistreated leads to removing the car, or at least her company, and spray painting all mirrors black. Shake is a widespread belief amongst many people, including women. I once thought that feminism promoted gender equality in the workplace. It alludes to the societal advantages enjoyed by the modern-day woman. I find discrimination against men to be equally offensive as that against women. This time, the men require fair treatment and careful consideration. In a study by the state's highest court, 56% of the state's male and female justices agreed with the statement, "I think young children should be with their mother." A group of 69 male lawyers concluded that judges always or almost always assume that the child belongs to the mother at first. 40% of female lawyers agree with nearly every other lawyer. About 94% of men and 84% of women say they stop listening and do their own thing when they feel their complaints about unfair favoritism are being ignored. Both men and women tend to tune out when they feel like they're being ignored. However, men are more likely to stop listening and do their own thing when they think this way, while women are more likely to keep going to be heard. This difference may be because men are more likely to perceive complaints about unfair treatment as a personal attack. At the same time, women are more likely to see them as an opportunity to improve the situation. Either way, it's clear that feeling ignored can lead to frustration and resentment. Males are 8 times more likely than females to take their own lives following a divorce, and many people point the finger at the family court system. This is because of the gender bias they perceive to exist there. For example, a 58-year-old man in New Hampshire burned himself to death on the courthouse step in June 2011 because he was sick of being treated like a second-class citizen by the family court. After all, he was a man in an age where women made significant strides toward gender equality in traditionally male-dominated fields. Their growing numbers may be unsettling to some males. Still, we can view partnerships as something more and more women can build, thanks to their expanding agency. Divorces are getting close to 60%, and women file 80%. That's what MGTOW men try to avoid, which is why they get so much criticism. Men realize that women don't need a good reason to dump a man. Some even teach other women how to get a starter husband, and they shame MGTOW men for not wanting to be the next victim. MGTOW is an example of a male who may have decided that this is now too feminine. As a second, a perhaps more startling example of male flight, consider cheerleading, which was considered a very masculine activity in the latter half of the 1800s and the early 1900s. Dwight D. Eisenhower, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Ronald Reagan could not have gotten their political start without it. The return of men from World War II eager to recover their rightful place on cheerleading squads was a significant factor in the acceptance of women in this traditionally male sport. Cheering has a different meaning because of the women present. Teenage boys reacted by avoiding it. As more women have entered the job, we have seen similar patterns emerge. For instance, male flight attendants were the norm in the aviation industry until 1930, when United Airlines hired a registered nurse named Ellen Church. It didn't take long for other airlines to follow suit. By 1936, women had essentially taken over the function. Some have noted the hypocrisy of MGTOW's approach, which is very similar to that of feminists for the past half-century. MGTOW wants more than just a vacation from talking to girls. They advocate for an option to the traditional masculines that have shaped American society, so it's no surprise that sometimes, or most of the time, feminists despise them. And to be honest, there are a lot of biased males who are damaging MGTOW's reputation. Strangely, males who join a site dedicated to discussing that they don't need women, still they talk about women so much. Nevertheless, unless I am directly asked about a question about a woman, I rarely speak publicly about women. The fact that hardly a single lady I've ever met has heard the adage, "It takes two to tango," has always intrigued me. There is mutual intoxication when a group of men goes out drinking with their buddies to pick up women. For a woman to claim the next day, "You took advantage of me and used me," is laughable. They both had sex with each other and utilized each other. No agreement made the night before would obligate this man to get in touch with her again. Is that something a jerk would do? Yes. Where do the laws stand on that? Is it true that in some locations that was the case? It's hard to fathom being labeled a rapist for something as innocuous as having sex while intoxicated with someone you trust. What if, instead of wanting you locked up for rape, she merely wants to ruin your life for ignoring her and using her? Women will vandalize vehicles and property and even attempt to kill you by driving into you with their cars. Women in this situation probably don't want to kill you, but putting feelings above reason is an old age problem for females. Where am I going with this exactly? From the moment we were endowed with the capacity of introspection, evolution has been our enemy. At this point in your life, you should do whatever makes you happy so long as it does not harm others or steal from them. The most blatant example of a counter-argument is carrying masculinity. I will provide for my family and lead my country with honor. Yet they disapprove of and separate themselves from even the most celebrated stereotypes of American men. There's something to be said about being single and independent. Too often, society portrays single people as unhappy and lonely. Still, the truth is, there are many benefits to being on your own. For one thing, you can do what you want when you want. You don't have to answer to anyone else. You can come and go as you please. Moreover, being single gives you a chance to focus on your happiness and growth. You can invest time in your hobbies and interests and explore new areas without considering a partner's needs or desires. In many ways, being single is a chance to focus on yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you're enjoying the MGTOW life, don't let anyone make you feel ashamed. Instead, embrace your independence and enjoy all that life has to offer. In the next video, I explore whether older women are worth pursuing men who are going their own way. I look at both the pros and cons of dating someone significantly older than you to help you decide on the final verdict of the matter.